Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be able to share some of my experiences and insights with you today. My name is Dr. Chrissy Antonopoulos, and I use the pronouns she, her. As a visual description of myself, I have long dark brown hair, dark brown eyes, and olive skin, and I'm wearing a brown top today, and I'm sitting in a room with some blue walls, white wall, and some chair and some plants. So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that we all meet on today. I acknowledge the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation as the custodians of the lands, waters and skies around the area where I am in southern Sydney today. So I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any First Nations people who are listening to the presentation today. So now I'll share a quick overview of what I'll be talking about today. So firstly, I'll share a little bit about me, my professional and personal experiences, and then I'll talk a little bit about transitions and some of the experiences that I've had with transitions. And then I'll talk about some strategies we can use to make transitions a little easier, which can include knowing our personal values. And then we'll finish with some key takeaways. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm a registered psychologist, a researcher and lecturer in psychology. I have my own private practice where I work with people who have disability, who have chronic health conditions, who are neurodivergent, and are experiencing mental health difficulties like anxiety, depression, trauma. I also teach and support psychology students at Charles Sturt University and James Cook University. I completed my PhD in psychology last year, and I researched implicit or unconscious biases, personal values, and employment of people with disability. And this led me to start another business where I offer consulting and training related to changing unconscious biases. So you're probably wondering where my interest in disability comes from. So it was from my own experiences. I'm legally blind. I have Stargardt's disease, and I also have a guide dog terror. I am also ADHD, which together with my vision loss makes for an interesting and highly productive life. So as you can probably see with all the different types of work that I do. All right. So the focus of this presentation is to talk about how we can navigate transitions when we live with vision loss. So transitions are unfortunately inevitable as we get older and as we move through life. So transitions can be many different things, like when we transition from, for example, high school to work, to study, or maybe a gap year, when we transition between different jobs or different careers, or even when we transition in and out of relationships, friendships, or moving home, moving with to live with different people. So basically, life is full of transitions, some bigger than others, and these transitions can have different impacts on each of us. Now, when we live with vision loss, transitions can sometimes be a little bit more difficult. For example, transitioning in or between jobs can be difficult as someone with vision loss or a disability in general, as often we might experience barriers like other people's attitudes or assumptions about us, or even just outright discrimination. It might also be more difficult for us living with vision loss to transition when moving house, for example, or into different environments, as often our environments are set up to have those supports that we need and the structures that we need. So these extra challenges can sometimes lead us to feel more stressed, overwhelmed, or even anxious. But the good news is that there are lots of things we can do to make these transitions just a little bit easy. So for me, transitions have always been hard. There are probably two very difficult transitions I have faced. The first was having to stop driving. So as I was diagnosed with Stargardt's in my mid-20s, it took me a long time to face the fact that I had to stop driving or had stopped driving and to actually sell my car, as it meant for me, this was a loss of my independence and freedom, which is what I thought at the time. A second really difficult transition for me was in my career. So I had initially gone to uni to study applied science, and my intention was after that to do medicine. But when I was diagnosed, I was told that dream was over. So I did struggle for some time with what I would do that would still fulfill me. And I landed on psychology, and here we are today. Now, the strategies I'll talk about next weren't something I knew much about when I was going through these two particular transitions, but looking back, I was using these strategies to some extent, even though I didn't know that I was. So, a strategy that we can use when going through transitions or any change or when making any big decision is knowing our values. So, personal values are the core beliefs and principles that guide how we think, how we feel, and how we act. Values shape our priorities, they influence our decisions, and they can help us decide what is important to us. So, values are often our motivators, they underpin our goals. So, you can see why they are really important, right? So, you might be thinking, how do I know what my values are? Or you might be thinking, that's easy. I know exactly what my values are. Either way, you will likely be living by your values in some way, whether you notice it or not. So, values will look different for everybody. We can share the same value, but we might interpret or use it really differently. So, for example, we might have 3 people who might value connection. But what that looks like for each person can be very different. So for one person, connection might be connecting with their family, supporting their loved ones, and being a dependable person. For another person, connection might be meeting new people, forming bonds, learning about different perspectives, and finding a shared experience with new people. A third person might interpret connection as feeling connected to the environment. So that might be going into nature or doing hobbies that connect us to nature, like, for example, hiking or rock climbing. So you can see how an overall value can look really different for all of us. And there are many ways we can uncover or delve into our values. This can be through having conversations about our values with people that we feel comfortable with, like our friends, families, or teachers. We can also do values work formally, like in therapy, but of course, it's not necessary to do this to explore your values. There's also lots of resources online and questionnaires you can do that will help begin to explore your values. So once you focus in on about 3 to 5 core values that are the most important to you, you can then use these to help transitions and making these a little bit easier. So I'll give an example of how I had used my values when going through one of the transitions I mentioned just before. So as I mentioned, I originally went to uni to do my undergraduate degree with the intention of applying to do medicine when I got my diagnosis in my final year of uni. So doing medicine and working with people had been my dream since I was a really little girl. I used to read a lot of medical books when I was a kid, and I used to love anatomy, and I used to like to figure out what was going on with my body and with other people's. So as you can imagine, and some of you probably can personally relate to this, that it was devastating when I got the news that I would lose my vision and that I wouldn't be able to do medicine. I was even told that I wouldn't be able to work at all. So I just want to side note that's a really important point for health professionals to really consider what we say, and not to limit the possibilities of people, because something that I did get told a lot in those early years was that I wouldn't be able to continue to work and I needed to quit my job. So I had to start thinking then about what I would do with my life that was still fulfilling for me. And I knew that I valued passion and purpose. So for me, passion meant being really into and really excited about what I was doing, um, being in something 100%. And then purpose meant that the work I was doing needed to have some form of meaning and value beyond how it made me feel or just beyond earning money. I needed to do work that would benefit others, or benefit the community or even change the world. So when I was younger, obviously I was a lot more idealistic, but these values are still two of the values that guide me today. So while I didn't articulate at the time that these values were guiding me, they were influencing how I felt through my emotions. So I began to have discussions with others close to me about what I could do and began thinking about the other ways to become a health professional and work with people. I'd had personal experience with mental health and had always been curious as to know how we can better support ourselves and others psychologically, mentally, especially when going through health challenges like losing your vision and like having family members unwell. So, this is how I ended up landing on psychology. Now, this fit my values. The passion, I was already interested in this area. I was working in a hospital at the time and found that I had skills in providing support and comfort to people on their journey. And I was always kind of the go to person for my friends and family when they needed support. And then it was fulfilling that value of purpose. So while it wasn't the way I thought I would support people and make a difference, it was definitely an area where I could work, support others, and be there for people at a time when they most needed it. So it was fulfilling that sense of purpose that I needed. So this decision fit. It was satisfying my values, it was satisfying my needs, my motivations. And in using my values to guide me, it made the transition a little easier. I felt more empowered in the moment that I would find something I loved that I could do. It gave me hope that I could still make a difference despite my vision loss and my situation. And it also gave me a sense of control over my life in a time that felt really scary and there were a lot of unknowns. So, through this example, you can see how knowing and living by our values not only can help guide us through decisions and through a transition, but also influence the way that we feel when we're going through a difficult time. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all smiles and laughs and joy. I definitely had times where I felt helpless and I cried a lot, still do cry a lot, but I always had my values, those values that were important to me, and I used them like a compass. They were guiding me and they were helping me through the situation. All right, so now you know a little more about values and how important they can be. How can you begin now to explore your own or support someone around you to explore their own values? So, here are some questions you can ask yourself or others. And you might ask these questions in a conversation, you might write them down, you might journal if that's your thing, whatever works for you. So, the first question is, what is important to me? The second question is, what motivates me? And then the third question is, what makes me feel fulfilled, happy, or gives my life meaning? So, starting here can help to begin to uncover what your values are. If you would like to incorporate this into a more formal setting, like if you're a teacher or you support someone experiencing vision loss, you might like to use resources like worksheets or questionnaires that can help to identify values. You can also purchase or make values cards where each card has a value and a short description. And then you sort through them and you shortlist till you find the values that are most important to you. This can be a bit of a fun way to explore values and can be made accessible. So, for example, I have quite large cards that I use and I have large print on them. You could also adapt these to Braille. So, some key takeaways. Firstly, transitions are inevitable, but they don't need to be scary or distressing or upsetting. Secondly, knowing your values. This will help not only in transitions, but also other decisions we might make, navigating relationships, and just our overall mental well-being. Thirdly, approach transitions with curiosity. Consider how you can use your values in shaping any change that you're experiencing. And fourth, this is directly for those experiencing vision loss. It's my motto that I've lived by for a long time now since I got diagnosed. There is always a way. We just need to find what that way is, adapt, use supports when we need to, and find the way that we can live the life that we choose. So if you'd like to explore any of this more, or you want to connect with me, feel free to get in touch. So you can find me on Instagram. My handle on there is at @the_blind_psychologist. Although I am really terrible at posting, I don't even know if I've posted this year, but I am on there and you can reach out to me, and there's my email and anything else you might want to use to get in touch. So again, thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you will start to explore your values.